Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Big Lair here in Jack's Private Coffee Corner. I'm still in Nagoya, Japan, coming to you live. Just wanted to give you an update on the coronavirus, what's happening here. Well, number one, most people don't realize that the just-in-time system, that's where you don't have a lot of stuff in a factory. You get the parts just in time to complete production. That's actually an idea from Japan. Toyota has made this world famous. They have this just-in-time system. They also have a system called the Kanban system. I'm not going to go into that, but you get the gist for the just-in-time, right? You get all the parts you need to produce a product just in time. That system is going to go away very quickly. It's already in the process of dying. This is going to affect a lot of industries. Why? Because everyone around the world has made their companies as lean as possible. Years ago, like when I was a kid, companies had big warehouses full of parts. They would stock parts. That's why in accounting you had these ideas of first in, first out, or last in, first out, right? This was something that every accountant knew about, especially if you were in any kind of industry that made a product, because you had to decide how were you going to do the accounting books for the materials you're bringing in. Are you going to use, last in, first out, or first in, first out, right? So anyway, that was all. Most companies have gotten rid of that. So that's kind of old school stuff. Maybe some of you don't even know about it. Anyway, a lot of companies, they're using just in time. It's very lean. They call it lean management. Right? You don't have this huge stock of inventory sitting in your warehouse taking up space, and you don't need a huge warehouse because now you don't have all this stuff that you have to put somewhere, right? So you're getting stuff in just as you need it to finish production. Well, imagine all these companies went to that system, and now, well, along with that, they moved all the production over to China. A lot of companies moved their production to China. And now they're suffering. They're suffering tremendously because this just-in-time system is breaking down. They don't know when they're going to get the parts back. The materials and the parts that are needed to produce things such as automobiles, especially automobiles. Where I am here in Japan, this area where I am, close to Nagoya, it's like the Detroit of Japan. It's where most of the Toyota has their factories here, and there's a lot of subsidiaries here, lots of related companies that make stuff for Toyota, do things for Toyota. And let's see, Suzuki's not too far away. Of course, Nissan and Honda, they're in a little different area, but they're also affected tremendously by this. Okay, so just in time, that's going to be a thing of the past. What's going to happen? We're going to have to bring inventories back. Absolutely. Now, just imagine, would you rather ship raw materials from somewhere and then have to think about how to guarantee the safety of those raw materials, as far as are they, infected with the virus or not? That would be much easier to deal with than finished products that are already in boxes that have gone through numerous hands, maybe numerous assembly lines. That's a nightmare. That would be a total nightmare. Raw materials, though, you have a minimum amount of people touching things and shipping things. And I think that's where we're going to go in the future here. We're going to have to. Local production will have to come back. There's no way, especially, in America, there's no way we're going to wait for things to come from China and then have them quarantined for however many days to make sure there's nothing on the products. That's going to jack up the price, number one. And number two, who's going to feel safe buying the stuff? So I think we're going to have to start producing locally again. Mark my words, this is going to happen. Okay. Next, I heard a story. You've probably heard about Italy. I've got two good friends who are Italian, two very good guys. And so I get to hear some news from them. And I also watch the news about Italy because I have two friends from there, right? Two towns, Milano and Venezia, they are, well, there's an area there of about 50,000 people. They're quarantining themselves. They're not letting anybody in or out because they want to stamp this thing out. Wow, can you imagine that? 50,000 people. Oh, hey, guess what? From today, you can't leave town. Nope, you got to stay within the city limits. You can't leave. Are you ready for that? I'm not ready for that. Years ago, I was ready for that. Years ago, okay, so here's my background a little bit. I'm in Japan right now. I've been here for 2 years. Before that 2 years, I was in Malaysia for 7 years. Before the 7 years in Malaysia, I was here in Japan for 14 years, almost 15 years. So I've actually got over 16 years into Japan. I've got 7 years into Malaysia. So before I went to Malaysia 9 years ago, I was prepared. I'm married, I have 3 kids. I had 6 months worth of food, water, and other necessary daily items stocked up. Toothpaste, toothbrushes, soap, shampoo, all the stuff that you would need to survive and be hygienic for 6 months. Now, we moved to Malaysia 9 years ago, so I put all that stuff in storage, right? And then, so we moved, it was January of 2011, we moved to Malaysia. March 11th of 2011, so about 2 months and 4 days after we left Japan, Fukushima happened. The big earthquake, the tidal wave, the nuclear reactors going off, which they still haven't stopped as far as I know, still pumping out radiation. That happened. I immediately came back to Japan and sent my stuff, my food and everything else. Now I was told, I got back here as fast as I could. I had a new job, but they were pretty sympathetic and let me come back to move some stuff. And I was told by the moving company, you can't send any food. Up until last week, you could have sent food, but now the Japanese government does not want anyone to send food out of Japan in bulk. Wow, that was a pretty big shock. Well, I took a chance. I took a chance on something that you can usually rely on, and that is people being lazy. Now in Japan, people are efficient. They do their job. You'd be amazed at how some of the workers are here. They're just fantastic. But I was guessing once I packed up all my boxes and taped them up, because they give you, moving company gives you boxes, right? And they give you tape and all that. I figured if I packed it up and taped it up, and I taped stuff like a maniac, there's no way they're going to cut my boxes open, look through everything, and then tape it back up. They're not going to do it. So I sent all my food, all my soap, everything. And I told them, I just labeled this box, whatever, kitchenware, and it was full of 40 cans of, Hormel chicken chili or something, you know what I mean, that kind of stuff. So I was stocked up. So it all arrives in Malaysia. Do you know how long? Well, number one, we weren't eating the food exclusively. That food that I sent, 6 months I figured I had worth of food. Left the water here, gave the water to my in-laws. They didn't want the food, actually. I would have given it to them, though. So I took the food, and we ate on that food for more than a year. Now, we weren't eating exclusively, but a year. And then we just started using that, toothpaste and soap and shampoo. Holy moly, I had 2 years worth of soap, shampoo, toothpaste, all the kind of toiletry type stuff, and I left like 300 rolls of toilet paper here. I didn't even take most of that stuff. So, for me, what I thought was 6 months worth of what we needed turned out to be, we would have been good for probably a year. A year we would have been good for. Anyway, I'm just saying I was prepared, because you never know when an earthquake's going to happen, and then you're out. Now, what prompted me to do this, I actually, I have very strong intuition, and, you could say the universe helps me out, my spirit guides help me out, put whatever name you want on it, God, whatever, works for you. But I was told to stock up on food one day. And I woke up in the morning, heard this message. I heard it for so many days in a row that one day I canceled work, and I drove to the nearest Costco store. Yes, we do have Costco in Japan. I love Costco. It was a 4-hour drive one way. I drove there and just stocked. We had a Lexus. I had that Lexus jam-packed with food and water. We came back, and we were living in a tiny place, so like one whole room of our tiny apartment was stacked floor to ceiling with food and water. Eventually, not just from that one trip. And then like 3 days later, there was a huge earthquake north of us. And it was so bad it destroyed huge parts of the prefecture. Prefecture's like a state, right? And it was just horrendous. So then saw the news like, wow, maybe that's what I was told to prepare for. Lucky we dodged a bullet. It didn't hit our area, it hit north of us. So my wife said to me, hey, can you go to the store and get this for me, and then go to the supermarket and get that for me? Okay, sure. And at the time, we only had one kid, so I'm with my oldest son. We go to the first store, it's a hardware store. I walk in. The first three aisles are empty, there's nothing there. I'm thinking, oh, they must be like restocking. Like I didn't put two and two together yet, right? They must be restocking everything. So I'm looking for whatever it was. And I asked the guy, and he goes, oh, okay, I'll show you where it is. And we're walking down this aisle, and I said, hey, you guys like restocking the store? What are you doing, remodeling? And he says, no. He said, didn't you hear about the earthquake? And I said, yeah, but that was north of us. And he said, yeah, but we open at 8 in the morning. He says, I got here at 7. There was a line of people around the block. We opened the doors early. People ran in and they took everything in these three aisles. This was where all like the disaster preparedness goods were, canned. For some reason, they sell bread in a can. That's like their big earthquake preparedness food in Japan. They call it kampang. Pang is maybe Portuguese for bread, right? Anyway, it's like this hard bread in a can. That's what they stock up on. I don't know what the deal is with that. Anyway, so all the flashlights, and all this stuff that you would need in an emergency, people just came in and bought it. So he's telling me this as we're standing in this aisle. And I look over and I said to him, hey, because there are like, you go to the store and you're looking for whatever. They might have, excuse me, a sample of something on the shelf, and it's like screwed onto the shelf, so you can't take it off, but you can see what's there, right? People had even torn off those samples, and I said, man, someone even tore the samples off. And he said, yeah, people were trying to buy that stuff even. That was nuts. So I thought, wow, people are really going to overreact and panic if something big ever happens. That's what prompted me to buy stuff, to get 6 months worth of, which it turned into 2 years worth basically. So then I go to the supermarket. Now this is a supermarket I had been to numerous times. I had just been a couple days before. A lot of Japanese go to the supermarket every day or every other day. People like to buy fresh stuff. They like to buy fresh fruits and vegetables. They have tiny refrigerators here. I don't. I have a normal size huge one, but most people have a small one. So I had just been to the supermarket 2 days prior. I go there and I realized the price of all the fruits and vegetables is like 3 to 4 times what it was 2 days ago. So I find a worker, he's like restocking like the cucumbers or something. And I said to the guy, hey, what's going on with all the prices? I was just here 2 days ago and the prices were like a fourth of what they are now. And he says, oh, didn't you hear about the earthquake? And I'm like, yeah, but why would you jack the price up 4 times because of an earthquake that's not in our area? And he just looked at me, didn't give me any answer. So I thought, okay, this is how it's going to be. Everyone, every man for themselves, so to speak, right? I mean, the stores, they're all going to jack everything up. You're going to pay top dollar for it, or there'll be nothing. So I went home and told my wife, and the following weekend, we went back to Costco, and every weekend after that, we went back to Costco until I felt like we had 6 months worth of food. So anyway, if you don't have, if you're not stocked up for at least a month, figure out, there's lots of websites out there that tell you, some of the best websites are Mormon websites. A lot of Mormons have very, very good websites on telling you how much, rice, how much, wheat or pasta and different stuff that you'll need to feed, a certain number of people. If I were you, if I was in America, I'd be that guy who has that 6 months worth of food stocked up already. I'd have food, water, all the hygiene products that you like to use. Man, stock up on it. At least get a month's worth. If I was in the States or in Europe or somewhere and I had my own place, here I am in Japan, I'm kind of in a tiny place. I'm not really in a position to stock up on stuff too much. And I'm waiting for my wife's visa to go through. I'm just waiting to get my wife's visa. She's Japanese, so that we can move back to America. So I'm not really in a position to want to stock up and then, maybe in a few months, I don't know, when the visa, all the paperwork comes through, we'll move back to America. I don't want to have to bring, an extra 50 boxes with me of food that I stocked up on. So anyway, if I was you guys, think about it. At least 2 weeks worth. But I would say a month's worth, all right? Okay. So that's how it's going in Italy, and the stores in Italy are absolutely just picked over. There's nothing in the supermarkets there. People have just gone nuts. Now, I've been watching this virus very closely, because if you see the stuff coming out of China, there's more going on than what they're telling us. There's a lot more going on than what they're telling us. I've seen some videos out of China that people have taken that are downright scary. They're dragging people out of their apartments, like kicking and screaming if they think you have a fever. Would you do that if it was just a normal flu? Or if it was something like SARS? They're trying to tell us that not too many people have died from this thing. Really? Then why are you pulling people out of their houses, kicking and screaming? If you think they have a temperature, why don't you just give them some medicine or say, hey, stay in the house? Drink lots of fluids. That's not happening. This is a completely different thing. I don't care what anybody says. I will not buy the official line that everything is fine, keep moving. No. This is really serious. So I'm watching this myself in Japan, and I was just watching like an update on Japanese TV about 20 minutes ago, and now people in the government, for me, this is the first time I've heard this, so I'm just putting it out. They are advising companies to consider telework as an option for their workers. Telework meaning you don't come to work, you work you work from home with your computer and phone. This is the first time I've seen this. Now, for a long time, people have, for years, people in Japan, workers have said, hey, why don't we have this option of telework? It would make a lot of sense. Companies didn't want to do it. The government, never pushed it. Now, they're going to need to do it very quickly. They're not prepared for it. They're not prepared. So even the government coming out telling companies, hey, you should consider this. Give your workers the option to telecommute, work from home, use their phone and computer. There's a couple problems with that. And I'm, come on, these guys are politicians. They've been there their whole lives. I'm just a guy who's been here for like 16 years, observing all of, what's going on around me. This is the circus, and I've got a front row seat to the circus for 16 years. Come on, so really, I'm the guy who's going to be telling you like how it is? But this isn't going to work. Why? Number one, a lot of people do not have internet. People have a cell phone, and that's it. Now, some people have computers. It's not like America. It's not like you think. A lot of Japanese do not have a computer. They don't even know how to use a computer. They do not know how to use a computer. They have a smartphone, and they can use that. Maybe if you're lucky, they have an iPad, a tablet, right? Maybe. But they don't have Wi-Fi at home. They have a data plan with their phone. And then, of course, you can do like a hotspot with your data plan and then use your iPad or your tablet or whatever with it. But people don't have these huge data plans, with internet at their home like we do in America, or maybe you do in Europe. They just don't have it. So how are you going to get, number one, how are you going to get workers to telecommute or, do this telework thing when many of them may not have internet at their houses? And some of them, if they have a cell phone with, a cell phone data plan, they haven't opted for the hotspot option. That's extra. They don't even know how to set it up, right? Okay, so that's the first problem. A lot of people don't even have internet. So how are you going to do it? Number two, a lot of companies, they will give their workers computers. Now, I do a lot of consulting work and I do teaching work here in Japan, and I work with a lot of executives, okay? Once in a while I see stuff that I'm not supposed to see, but I sign non-disclosure agreements, right? And I have a pretty good idea how most companies operate in Japan. Every company, just like the mafia has 2 sets of books. Every company in Japan, well, most companies, okay, there are a few good ones that don't do this, but most of the major companies, and I've worked with executives from most of the major companies in Japan, they have 2 sets of rules. The one set of rules is what they say in front of the media and to the government. And the second set of rules is what they tell their workers, this is how it's going to be. Okay, so what, are you going to take some guy who's working for an automaker, and he's an engineer, and he's working on a sensitive project? You're going to, and you know, now these guys are not allowed, officially they're not allowed to take their work computers home. They're not allowed to take their computers out of the company. And when they do take their computers out of the company, if they have to meet with a client, or they may have some really good reason to do it, they sign it out with the security department. They sign the computer out and they sign it back in. Okay? And someone's supposed to check it afterwards. I don't think it happens, but maybe it does. Okay, so what are you gonna, do you have enough computers to give all your workers a laptop? Because you'd have to give your workers a laptop, right? Most companies are not set up for their workers to take their laptop or their desktop home with them and keep it at their house, because they don't have a secure intranet. You know, companies will have their own internet within their company, the intranet, right? And it's all, supposedly it's secure. And that way they can send documents back and forth and not worry about hackers or, you know, corporate espionage or something happening. But they don't have anything set up to where you could take your computer home with you without breaking, you know, a number of security protocols and making your computer and all your information very vulnerable to hackers or someone else. So I don't see how telework is going to work for most companies, because most people don't have internet. They do have a cell phone with a data plan, though. And most companies are in no position to have their workers take the computers home. Now, I know some guys do. I know some of the guys I've dealt with do, because they're told, hey, this project has to be done by next Monday. We don't care that you're married. We don't care that you have kids. We don't care that, you know, your daughter's you know, has a whatever recital. It's the first time she's going to have a music recital. We don't care. You got to have this project done. You take the laptop home and you finish the project. Like, that kind of stuff happens all the time. However, they're not prepared to do it on a mass scale. Absolutely not. So just think of what effect this is going to have on the economy. And this is, I'm just talking about Japan. And, you know, what's it going to be like in America? Is it going to be better in America? Maybe, I don't know. Are people set up to do work, you know, remotely like that? You know, this telework idea. You know, there are some jobs, like my oldest son, he's working part-time at a restaurant right now. And he was just asking me today, I wonder how many more days I'll be able to work. You know, there are big tour, he works at a place that's a little famous in this area. And they have tour buses that come in 40, 50, you know, up to 80 people at one time file into the restaurant, into these big like banquet hall room kind of. And even he's worried, like, man, I could be getting the virus from someone. It's like, yeah, you could. And that's the next thing I'm waiting for. There's going to be a national restaurant chain or a fast food chain, or, you know, one of the major train lines will, you know, they'll have several workers that deal with customers, that deal with passengers. They're going to get it, and then people are just going to stop using public transportation, and they're going to stop going out. That's going to happen. Now, I think in my last video, I did mention that a big train line here, the Japan Railways, I think that's how it translates to an English, Japan Railways company, one of their workers has the coronavirus. So how's that going to spread? And today, in about an hour and a half, I will be getting on a train, a Japan Railways train. I have to, because I'm going, you know, I have to go to work. So we'll see. Now, when I took the trains last week, I noticed about 40% less passengers than normal. So we'll see what it is today, huh? Okay, you guys, I just wanted to give you an update of what's going on here. You know, there have been a lot of, I'm not even going to talk about all the coronavirus cases that have increased in Japan. I think the system's going to be overwhelmed really quickly. Oh, and I should remember, one more thing I didn't mention, that On the news now for more than a week, they've been announcing if you think you have a fever or possibly symptoms of the coronavirus, do not go to a hospital. Do not go to a clinic. They're giving a hotline number. First, call this hotline before you go anywhere. They do not even want you going to the hospital or clinic without calling this hotline number. And that's going to be tough for a lot of Japanese because we have national health care here. National health care where you pay a certain amount of money based on your salary. It doesn't matter how much you use it or how much you don't use it, you pay based on your salary. And because a lot of old people, don't pay, they don't have to pay because of their age, as you get older it gets cheaper and whatnot. They'll go to the hospital or clinic for the tiniest thing. I mean, when my father-in-law, Japanese father-in-law, had cancer and I took him to the hospital, I remember seeing one lady checking in. She was at the reception counter and they asked her what was wrong, and she basically had a hangnail. I mean, I could hear the conversation. She had a hangnail and she wanted to go see like a skin specialist, and they gave her an appointment. And I was thinking, are you kidding me? It's a hangnail. Walk over here. I'll just pull the damn thing off for you, End of story. Go back home. Now you get people coming in for crazy, crazy simple stuff like that, which, makes the system more expensive and, kind of balloons and goes on and on and on. So this is a society where people are used to going to the hospital for every little thing because they have national health care. This is really going to change things. If you can't just go for any reason now, or if you're scared to go because if you go for your hangnail, you may meet someone who has the virus and you get it from them. So that's another thing to think about. How are things in America? Let me know how things are in America or Europe, you guys. I have been away from America now for over 22 years. 22 years. Is that amazing or what? I'm really hoping to get back. I wanted to be back last year, but this thing with my wife's visa is taking a lot longer than I thought. I'm ready. I'm ready to get out of here. But until I get out of here, I will keep letting you guys know what's going on. Like I said, though, let me know what's going on in America. Do you think the same things will happen? Do you think the healthcare system will react maybe better than they are in Japan here? In Japan, they let passengers off that Diamond Princess ship without even testing them. They just asked them, have you had a fever in the last 2 weeks? No, I haven't. Have you had this? No, I haven't. Have you had this? No, I haven't. You should be good. And then one of the passengers, she walks off the boat 2 days later. Oh, she's got the coronavirus. What are you doing? Are you kidding me? So that's it. It is what it is, So let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you can, give me a thumbs up. And you guys take care, and I will keep putting out these videos as long as I can. Oh, one more thing I want to mention. This is the last and final thing, I promise. I have heard talk from a certain number of people that I know who, who make videos for YouTube and who are kind of bigger they're big influencers, right? Like, I'm just a guy with a tiny channel. But these are some people that have some influence on YouTube. And what they've heard is that YouTube will be changing their algorithms and trying to, what's the right word? Get rid of videos that talk about the coronavirus. They don't want to cause panic or whatever. This happens once in a while with certain topics on YouTube. Like I said, like I always say, it is what it is. We'll just work around it. So in the future, instead of saying, coronavirus, coronavirus, corona, C, virus, V, I may just say I have an alert, breaking news on a coffee video. So instead of the coronavirus in my future videos, I may say coffee video instead of coronavirus, okay? So if you see a video, breaking news, coffee video in Japan, it'll mean the coronavirus, and I'll just have to do that to get past the algorithms, okay? Okay, you guys, you take care, and I will see you in the next one.